We're creative. We build things. We could deliver it bloody anywhere. Nothing beats a round table of people with interjecting ideas, collision of thought. It's all very much, we can come up with a solution together. We're almost the best kept secret.
Welcome to the Leeds Creative Folk podcast, where some of the most interesting and influential figures from the Leeds creative scene share what drives their creativity and what it means to be part of the Leeds Creative Village. My name is Paul Brodie from Manto Films, and my guest for this episode is Bruce Lerman, founder and director of Manto Collective, a design and production studio creating immersive experiences for some of the world's biggest brands. We talk about the creativity of sport, the magic of the dark arches, and his love for Leeds street art. You said just a second ago that you don't think of yourself as a creative person. Is that true? Because it seems to me like through your career there is a real seam of kind of creativity there.
Looking back to when I was a child, I definitely wouldn't have said I was creative. Way more into sport, the feeling of being part of a team, and then the work hard, play hard mentality of what that looks like. I think looking at it now with a bit of hindsight, I'd probably argue there is elements of it that led to creativity, but I think where I find creativity is in the formation of a team. How we work together and how we come to an end goal is way more appealing to me than the actual root cause of creativity, but it's how people understand it.
I think we really narrow the idea of creativity down to kind of drawing or like music or whatever. And I think you watch really good footballers, and I think there's a huge amount of kind of creativity in how they play and in, you know, how their brains work and whatever. And you know, as kids, it's sort of whatever we connect with most, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's that traditional scope of, are you an artist, are you a musician? But you look, like you said, to your point, footballers are creative in their own way, rugby players are creative. I think for me, I'd never pinpointed a moment of creativity. Like I say, this hybrid of how a team comes together to a live end was always more appealing to me as a person. I suppose that's where live events and myself have really come to be.
You have quite an interesting sort of journey into your career and how you've ended up where you are today. And I think I'm right in saying that initially the plan was kind of sport, and then that got slightly kind of derailed. Is that right?
Oh yeah, like, I think if you'd speak to my parents, education or any form of proper job was not on the cards. I was set to be a rugby player. Due to circumstance, that wasn't to be, but I ended up in Leeds. I've been here 20 odd years now. I wouldn't necessarily change it, and everything happens for a reason.
And you ended up working in a bar, and that was sort of the start of the journey to where you are today.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, very much so. I think I started off at Revolution. I needed a job, and it turned out I loved bartending, I suppose. And that there's more creativity in bartending than you'd be led to believe when you first look at it, looking in. And I think it was the enjoyment of late nights, very social. It's that work hard, play hard that relates back to that social, like team sport aspect that really appealed to me.
You've been through a few different businesses that you've kind of set up and been involved in. What kind of drives you, you know, to keep sort of coming up with new ideas or to, you know, a new project, a new kind of initiative?
I think personally, I'm probably quite hungry for, I don't know if you call it success or a want for a different situation. And with Impact, I suppose we've created the perfect storm for how I want to work. We're creative. We build things. We could deliver it bloody anywhere. It could be the middle of a festival field. It could be a shopping centre in London. It could be a circus in Paris. It's really created something that I go to work every day and a day doesn't slow.
What was it? You said you particularly have a thing about team. You know, what is it about that really kind of draws you to it?
It's how you build a team and where you start. By no means am I the most creative person in our business. Absolutely not. But bringing experts in their field to a situation and creating an ecosystem where people feel comfortable to be creative is way more important to me than one person leading that role of creativity.
And when you're working with your designers and so on, let's say right at the beginning of a project, you've got a brief from a client and you need to, as a team, kind of, interpret that brief, sort of put forward what you want to do. How involved are you in that bit of it? Do you work with them, or do you kind of say, okay, you're good at this bit, you get on with that? And
I think it's if you go back a few years, it was all revolved around a couple of people, and we made that decision. As we've grown and as the team's evolved, we'd let people have their own creative stamp on what they're going to do. Our head designer is extremely creative. He comes from an architecture background. So having his input into the briefs, how we interpret them, is super important to the delivery of impact and how we assess each brief. I think the difficulty comes when you're looking at something like a fluffy brief that isn't really fleshed out by the client, and taking it back a step and going to mood boarding to achieve that. And that's very much a team approach to how we achieve that.
And do you get stuck in with that yourself? Are you will you throw ideas in the mix as well?
I try to. I think what we've done over the last year or so is we're trying to empower our entire team to be creative. And the way we're doing that is through, on Friday we have a team meeting, and it's very simple. Everyone finds an activation or build an experience that they're influenced by, and they spend 5 minutes presenting it. Hopefully that brings a bit more creativity from the warehouse manager through to the head of design.
I really love the idea of that. Why do you think that's important for you as a team?
We were getting far too hooked up on being insular and not opening up decisions to the team. So it was really important to really go, right, we've got 20 great people in this business. Everyone's from a different walk of life. Everyone has a different emotional connection to an event, to a music, to whatever it may be. Not only does it generate a catalogue of inspiration for the business, it also brings people that probably may not feel like they're being heard. And then when it comes time to that next brief, they've had a really good idea. How can we spin their idea into what our clients are looking for?
You work with, these like some pretty big national, international brands, but you're almost like this sort of this business that people wouldn't be aware of, necessarily within Leeds, and that there are these other ones dotted around Leeds that are actually doing this really high profile work for huge brands. What's your sort of thoughts on that?
I think we say this to our clients, and we're almost the best kept secret. We are a very creative business delivering to big company. But there's more of us in Leeds doing the same thing. There's Bazaar Studio, XSME, which is a big trade show company. All these different pockets of immersive experience, activation-led, are all in Leeds. And I prefer collaboration between businesses to deliver a better end goal. Hopefully then drawing more people to Leeds, increasing the awareness of how our style businesses can collaborate, which they definitely don't at the moment, and create a different environment. But it needs to be, I think, a whole industry shift in that instead of it being, it is hard out there. It is hard to get new work. But I think the sum of more would be greater than the sum of one in the instance of attaining more work, retaining it, and pushing Leeds in the direction of, come to this city. There's a few of us doing some great things.
How are you feeling the impact of AI within your work?
AI plays a role not in our creative. Absolutely not. To streamline our back of house, 100%. If we can automate how we are being prompted to get back in touch with a client, can it plan our calendar? Yeah, 100%. However, it cannot come at the cost of our creative. And nothing beats a round table of people with interjecting ideas, collision of thought. It's all very much, we can come up with a solution together. I really don't believe that using AI to skim and scrape the internet to find a possible new version of how a shipping container can be would ever give the same effect of people sat around a table going, this is how we want that bar to look.
Yeah, I really echo your thoughts there. And I think most creative that I speak to will say the same. You know, the idea of it taking the place of their own creativity, their own inspiration, ideas, you know, that they wouldn't consider it. And actually, you know, it just wouldn't be as good. You know, fundamentally, it wouldn't be the same. I guess the worry is whether the pressure will come from clients to say, we need to, you know, we think with AI we can do this for, you know, 20% less, you know, so that sort of thing. Do you feel like that's a threat or a possibility?
I am sure there are other in-house fabrication companies that do run by AI. My opinion of it is you're employing a company, you're not employing a computer. By all means, use your mood boarding to give us a brief. Let us interpret that brief however you believe it should be done. Cost is a huge part of it, absolutely. But how long have you got to spend figuring out a prompt? How long have you got to reinterpret that drawing to create the right thing? If we don't hit the nail on the head when we're drawing it, it's way simpler to go, can you curve that edge off? Can you change that to fluting instead of a flat wall? We can do that quicker than try to figure out the correct prompt. And I think we may lose clients to it, but people that understand craftsmanship and quality of work hopefully will stand by us through our decision not to move to a creative AI process.
Do you and your team, do you kind of just take inspiration from other kind of similar things that are being done, or is there anywhere particular you go for ideas or for inspiration?
Personally, I see a lot of inspiration in, say, a nightclub and the setting of a nightclub. It could be a warehouse and a dirty rave, but you could equally get to a beefer into these like super clubs, super pristine, but each one of them's creating a pocket of an experience. And I think that's what the team try to do, and Impact as a whole try to deliver an experience that's fit for that brand. And for us, it's more about what is that emotional connection? When that guest leaves that experience, have they emotion related to what we've delivered?
Do you have any kind of creative heroes in terms of that could be another, you know, another designer, another agency, a brand, or it could be a club or anything like that?
The creative industry as a whole kind of looks at these spearhead moments, but there's so much going on behind the scenes. And I suppose it's the people behind the scenes that need the credit. To create an activation, you don't just need the account manager or the MD of the company. There's a 3D designer, there's a graphic designer, there's a fabricator, there's a scenic artist, there's a carpenter. These people don't get the love they deserve, and they are craftswomen, craftswomen in their own right. And without them, you wouldn't see the Olympics opening ceremony. You wouldn't see the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah, 100%. I think I really connect with that because, you know, a lot of the work that we do is we work with kind of within our team, quite small crews, but if we get a chance to be involved in, you know, a bigger film project, you know, the nature of that is that there's so many different people involved with their own kind of real specialist areas. And you look at kind of big, you know, bigger Hollywood films, there's hundreds and hundreds of people who all have a role in kind of putting together what you see on screen, and obviously it'll be the director and the actors who get all the attention. Just in the context of Leeds and the kind of scene in Leeds, you know, whether that's kind of clubs, bars, and that sort of music scene, how do you see the sort of state of that and how it's changed over the time that you've been involved in it?
I think at the moment, and it's probably a less popular opinion, I think it is a bit flat Leeds. where there used to be independence and people pushing forward, it seems like Leeds is turning marginally more to a high street city. I don't believe there's as much bespoke, boutique nature, and there is still the craftsmanship. Absolutely. There are people in Leeds really pushing the boundaries, but I think it's the nature of the times. But you compare it to somewhere like Manchester, which is loud and proud, and it's almost pushing forward into this second space of a second city for the UK. But it'll get back. There's good things happening. Testbed's wicked, big space. There's all these like Tabula Rasa, an independent bar. They're all doing great things. I think the city needs to pull together to collaborate to move forward a little bit harder.
What do you think would make a real difference for Leeds? I think there are ways in which it could really sort of make a big step up. What do you think are some of the things it could do to do that?
I don't think it's so much about what it could do, because it is doing a lot. There is this like undercurrent of creative things happening in Leeds. The council could be a bit more open to things that probably are a bit more abstract. I don't think it's through lack of trying. You look at the Grand Depart round about 2012, and that created this huge buzz around the Tour de France coming to Leeds. More recently, you look at something like Roundhay Park and the festivals that are going on up there. I've no idea how they're doing, but 70,000 people in your park that are spending in the nighttime economy, that are spending in the hotels, is surely way more use than not doing anything, because not doing anything's worse.
In Leeds, is there a particular kind of hidden gem in Leeds that you feel like people should know about?
In terms of drinks, and if I'm going for a drink, 100% Tabula Rasa. The hospitality, the level of service, the attention to detail in the small nature of how they garnish a cocktail is something that I love. On a more foodie level, I've always loved Ox Club. It's like a little microclimate of, say, a St John's in London or one of those open fire kitchens. That's really where I'd tend to spend my time now.
If you had to describe Leeds in 3 words, what might they be?
Creative, small, and up for a good time.
I'll give you that. It's one long word. Up for a good time.
Let's go
no
with
spaces. Up for a good time.
Up for a good time.
Yeah. If you had to go somewhere in Leeds to get inspired, where would you go?
I think actually under the train tracks as you're going towards Live in Italy, but at night and in the right setting, I like those like hidden pockets of like moody moments, like the water flowing. It's a bit immersive. If there's no one else there, it's nice, quiet.
I think it's a really cool space. They're kind of dark arches.
Yeah,
I like it being referred to as the dark arches. It feels like it's from like Lord of the Rings or something. If Leeds were a flavour of ice cream, what would it be?
Cookie dough.
Cookie dough. Okay.
Yeah, it's just a flavour of ice cream I like.
And you like Leeds, so
yeah, I like Leeds. It's where I live. It's sound cookie dough.
Is there another kind of business or like personal, creative, or whatever in Leeds that people don't know about that you feel like should know about?
I think Leeds has got so many creatives. A street artist that I have seen a lot, and I know, Nicholas Dixon, creates great pieces of street art, be it for Leeds United or more mural-based stuff at the market. I really enjoy his stuff.
Yeah, there's been quite a lot more, like over the last 10 years, a lot more kind of street art around Leeds.
Yeah. It's just a great subculture of it, and I suppose that's one thing Leeds does very well is it's open to sides of buildings getting transformed into something else.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.